Today, we're going to review the Pan Asian Tier 8 Premium Destroyer Lüshun, which is the reward for the ongoing campaign of May 2024. But before we really get into proceedings, I need to talk to you about something I discovered last night that I think might be a bug. Easiest way to explain it will be to just show you. My commander is Jia Bing, you see, and we have Sims as one of the inspirations on this build, right? Well, if we take Sims off, look at the repair party, 277, right? We've got Sims off the commander right now. We've got Norm Scott in his place because he does nothing. We put Sims back on there. Okay, look at what happens to the HP restored by the repair party. It goes from 277 to 323. Explain that one to me, if you could, anybody, because as I understand it, William Sims only buffs the HP of the ship. He shouldn't have any effect on the repair party consumable, but according to the stats page for the consumable, he seems to. I don't really get it. Anyway, the numbers I read to you for the stats here are going to be influenced by that commander build and my mod selection. Note I am running the range mod in the 4th slot rather than reload because I think the base range on this destroyer is just a little bit too low. But to begin with, let's talk about the survivability. And what I've got here for you is actually a series of clips before a full game to try and demonstrate my points a little bit better. So to begin with, we've got 21,540 hit points, and that's with Sims as inspiration. Now, without Sims, we've got 18.5k. And that might sound a little bit low because it is. There are, after all, destroyers at this tier with almost 30,000 HP. But that heal, let's talk about how much HP that potentially restores. If it's true that the restoration is 277 HP per second, we're looking at 5,500 potential healing. If it is actually 323, then we're looking at 6,400. Either way, that's a lot of hit points to restore. And, well, it's going to come in handy for us in this opening sequence of this battle. When I loaded into this game, I looked to see if there was any radar before entering the Bravo cap, and I didn't think there was, but there is a Giuseppe Verdi, which does have radar, and I always forget that. So I'm going to pay for that with a lot of my hit points lost between him and the Adriatico here. Now that the radar's gone, we're going to smoke up, but we've still lost a lot of HP. You see, though, how much we can restore with that repair party. This ship is exceptionally survivable. With that heal taken into account, it may, in fact, have one of the best HP pools of any destroyer at the entire tier. So, low HP, well, you can get a lot of it back. Now, for the guns, you can see them here working against the Adriatico. We've got 4 guns set in 2 double turrets, one on the front, one on the back. They both have 360-degree turning, so that's nice. They reload in 1.6 seconds base, although I have it, or 1.7 seconds rather, although I have the reload down to 1.6. The HE does a maximum of 1,300 with a 5% fire chance. AP, maximum 2,000. Range on the guns is 13 kilometers with this build, but again, I am built for range. You don't necessarily have to do that. If you don't build for range at all, I think you're looking at about 10.7 km. That, I think, is just too little for a ship at Tier 8. Another clip showing off the efficacy of the guns, but also the smoke screen and sonar. We've got 4 charges of the Pan-Asian smoke screen. They deploy for 30 seconds, so you can create a big cloud, and then they last for a little over a minute. But if you sit in one for the full duration, they reload in less than a minute, which I think makes them very good and versatile. Then, the sonar. That's the real highlight on this ship. You can see it here in action against the Udachi. This sonar has a 5.4 km ship detect range, 3.8 km torpedo detect range, and basically, you just smoke up, you pop the sonar, destroyer gets caught in it, destroyer is dead. Just ask the Udachi there. Of course, we do also have torpedoes. They are deep water torpedoes, and we've got 10 of them, 2 quintuple launchers amidships. They have a maximum range of 11 kilometers. They go at 65 knots in the water. When they hit, 17,933 damage is what they do at max. So, not the hardest hitting torpedoes in the world, but these are no pillows that you're throwing out of these launchers. And being deep water, they have a sea detectability range of zero point 0.8 km. The only real downside is the 125-second reload. They don't come back very quickly. But of course, you can use the torpedoes in tandem with the guns in certain cases to bait radar cruisers into turning broadside to shoot you with all of their guns when you've got torpedoes going at their bows. And, well, if you're going to hit a broadside cruiser, you're almost going to deal max damage with those torps. There's a dev strike on a Cleveland. And that is sort of the end of the clips I have to demonstrate for you. We can talk about AA and maneuverability and concealment as we load into this game. This game is sort of a full match that we're about to see, and it is my highest XP game so far in the Lüshun. I think the damage at the end is pretty good, but this game more than any other, and I have a lot of games recorded. Some of those clips come from games where the full match is pretty good. I'll probably put up some more videos of the Lüshun because I want to dig deeper, I think, into these new premium ships and give more thorough reviews over time. This is sort of an attempt to get things all put out there in a reasoned way with some good examples. I don't want to overhype this thing, but it is really good. In any case, one thing that's not good about it is the AA. It's got an aggregate AA rating of 52 for whatever that is worth, and basically I don't think you're going to be defending yourself too well against aircraft carriers. Maneuverability is also a little bit of a low light. With the Epic Booster Battle Propensity flag that we have running in order to give ourselves a little bit of extra range on the guns, the speed of the ship is 37.1 knots. I think it's 36 base, and that is not slow, certainly, but it's rather pedestrian speed for a destroyer at the tier. And of course, we do not have an engine boost consumable. We've got practically everything besides that, but engine boost is something we don't have. So the speed may be a little bit of a downside, along with the gigantic 700-meter turning circle. This thing is not very maneuverable, let's say. It needs to be driven with some degree of finesse, and it can be a little bit hard if you want to try to make tight maneuvers. Rudder shift, though, is 5.1 seconds, which I think some people will say is quite long, but I think it's perfectly fine. Concealment on this thing can also be a highlight. I'm not specifically built for it, though. My concealment on this build is 5.5 kilometers, but of course I was using Rumble as one of the commander inspirations. And Rumble, I mean, he's fine, certainly. The reason I'm using him is to get a little bit of extra range, as I've already said, but you could replace Rumble very easily with a different inspiration. Like, for example, Eric Bay. He'd be fine to put on in place of Rumble. Bay and Sims on Shenbing, that'd be a good build. And if you do that, the concealment will be below 5.4 kilometers, which means you will have stealth sonar. So this ship has basically a box of gimmicks. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure I understand why it's allowed to have these Pan-Asian heels. I don't think I highlighted this earlier, so let me take a second to just explain the actual time on these heels, or these smoke screens. They disperse for 31.8 seconds, so you can lay a big cloud like an American destroyer can. Now, they don't last as long as an American destroyer smoke. It's only 74.2 seconds for the time that the smoke screen stays in the air. But the reload time, which begins right after the 31.8 seconds of the dispersion time has elapsed, the reload time is 114 seconds. So by the time the smoke screen is faded, you've got, I think, less than 60 seconds before the next one comes back. It's almost like the slow motion version of the British destroyer smokes. Those, of course, last for maybe 45 seconds, and then by the time they're done, you've got to wait maybe another 45 seconds before they reload. These last for a little over a minute, and then you've got to wait for a little under a minute until they're reloaded. They're very versatile. Now, of course, you only get 2 charges of the sonar consumable, and you can see as we took that cap in the center of Bravo, we didn't even use the sonar. We didn't need to use it. I found that I don't want to deploy the sonar just if I'm in a cap, worried about torpedoes coming. I want to angle myself against where I think the enemy destroyers might be and avoid torpedoes without sonar, because the sonar is so useful in situations like this. We've got a gearing pushing into us, and, well, he is going to go down very quickly. We're able to pop a smoke. We're able to catch him in the sonar. Again, 5.4 kilometer detect of ships. Even if this guy turned around right now, he would not escape before he went down. So this ship is basically a master cap contester, let's say. The only downside, or the only threat to it, really, is radar, or potentially other destroyers that have a similar smoke sonar combo gimmick, like perhaps the Z-52 or Z-46 on the German line. Those might present you a little bit of a problem, and certainly radar will, but anything else, you're basically the sheriff. I think the idea here is you go in, you can test the caps, you deal with the enemy destroyers using this smoke sonar combo, and after that, you can pretty much do whatever you want. You also have these crazy guns that reload very quickly, and you can spend a lot of time farming battleships. Now, the fire chance is only 5%, which is a little bit low, but the shells reload so quickly that it almost doesn't matter. You do light quite a bit of fires, especially against large targets like battleships. But one of the real downsides here, I think, is the Alpha Strike on the HE. The HE only does a maximum of 1,300 damage, which I believe may be the lowest HE alpha for any destroyer in the game. Usually you only see these kind of numbers on German destroyers, but the German destroyers get extra pen in return. This thing does not. It can only pen 22 millimeters of armor with HE, which is perfectly sufficient. That's more than enough to pen the hulls of any destroyer you will encounter. You can pen some cruiser superstructure and even hulls with that, and of course battleship superstructure. But individually, these HE shells, when they hit, they don't do an awful lot of damage. They do start fires often enough, I find. We didn't have any fires prior to this point in this match, but I think now we're up to 4 just on that Yamato, and you can see how quickly the damage climbs up when you're farming. Of course, the AP is also good, and Shen Bing, if you're going to use him as the commander, he buffs the AP penetration angles for destroyers, which means maybe you can penetrate at slightly more steeper angles than without him. And of course, if you switch to the AP against broadside ships like battleships or cruisers when you're trying to farm them, I think you'll find that the damage output is better and more consistent. Against destroyers, though, I'm not quite sold on it yet. I think this is going to require a little bit more investigation, because I have found that the HE damage can feel individually a little bit anemic versus destroyers, and I've tried switching to the AP to see if we could get full pens, but these are 130 millimeter guns, so I don't know how likely they are to get full pens on destroyers with AP. Certainly at the closer ranges, it doesn't seem like they will. It seems like they'll just overpen. But once the range gets a little bit longer, I have noticed a couple full pens, and the damage, as you might expect, is quite good. It's certainly better than the HE, but I think you can certainly shoot HE at destroyers. I just don't know if it's going to be more optimal to shoot AP in certain situations. It might be. In any case, the ship is obviously quite strong. I've played about 14 games in it up until this point, and I have a 71% win rate so far, if that sort of tells you anything. This thing has massive battle impact, and honestly, I think it might be a little too potent. As I understand it, on PC, this is a Tier 10 destroyer, meaning it's the legendary tier equivalent for World of Warships Legends, but of course they've put it at Tier 8, and they've given it something it doesn't have on PC, namely the smoke screen. I think it does have the heal, and I think it does have the sonar, but with that smoke and sonar combo and the heal, Oh, I don't know. I think it might be a little bit too much in one package, but it's certainly the best campaign ship of the year, in my opinion. Better than Jaeger, Schroeder, and certainly Carl Johann. This one is definitely worth going for. 3,029 base XP in this particular match, highest XP I've yet earned, but I think there's possibilities for more. And I will be continuing to play this ship. I've got some more games that I could put up as full matches with commentary if you'd like to see those. They'll probably be put up maybe later this week or next week. But in any case, I definitely think this is a campaign worth pursuing. It's the most worthwhile campaign so far this year, I would say. Hope you enjoyed this video and this format. I'm trying to buff my reviews a little bit. Let me know if I've succeeded. Give the video a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.